The last time the Wii U sales were documented, it landed at 13.56 million units, which is terrible. To put it into context, the PlayStation 5 isn't even 3 years old and it already sold more than double the Wii U did, which is 11 years old. There were a lot of fumbles to the Wii U. The controller felt like a cheap learning tablet you'd buy your 5-year-old. The name was terrible. It should have at least been called the Wii 2. It's the same reason why people will get on a line just to move up to the iPhone 3, 4, 5, 6. Then there were tons of third parties pulling out of support for the system, probably because of how freaking weak it was compared to the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. This probably was nowhere close to actually happening, but I remember during these days talking to my friends like, will Nintendo actually step out of the console space? With Nintendo having a special place in my heart, I'd never want to see that happen. I never want to see Mario on an Xbox or a PlayStation. I feel like that would just be turning this huge sad page in the book of gaming history. But back then, my little naive brain thought it was actually possible. It felt like they were riding entirely on the success of the 3DS. Other than the Virtual Boy, which is truly an unfathomable and unlikely flop, the Wii U is Nintendo's greatest failure. And it was awesome. Why? Probably the strongest point I can make for why the Wii U is so underrated is just look at how many games were ported to the Switch with deluxe editions or whatever Nintendo decided to call them. So here's a very basic chart for most of the games that were ported from Wii U to Switch and their sales in the millions. And other than Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition, which I found an article saying that Koei Tecmo was really happy with the performance of that game, you can see that every game here at least doubled their sales. It was never the games themselves that was subpar. It was just this cheap plastic thing that they were stuck on that was. And I can tell you from personal experience that 5 of these games in this chart are just bangers. Mario Kart 8 was like the most fun kart racer I had played in years. Pikmin 3 was probably the best looking first party game on the system, maybe best looking game period, with just beautiful depictions of gardens. I remember the water being really impressive. The strategic gameplay was top notch. I loved doing those co-op missions with one of my best friends at the time. We used to have just sleepovers trying to grind out these co-op missions. They were actually pretty hard. If Donkey Kong Country Returns was a safe return to an old beloved franchise, then Tropical Freeze was its first creative turn since the 90s. Captain Toad is such a cute and pleasant puzzle game where each level feels like this compact, again, little garden. Every level just felt like this perfect little cube. I loved it. I remember reading that the levels were designed by this Japanese gardening style where you garden in like this cube format, and you could totally see that. It was just very beautiful and pleasant. And then I remember being surprised by Super Mario 3D World. I was kind of feeling against it because the levels weren't like actually as three-dimensional as something like a Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, but when I played it and replayed it on the Switch, again, I was just blown away by like the levels feeling so perfectly compact and well designed, jam-packed with secrets and interesting unique objects that you can interact with, which would spice up the gameplay in tiny ways. Every level in that game felt like a playground, and much like Pikmin 3, the co-op in that game was so much fun. And obviously the cherry on top of the whole Wii U lifespan was Breath of the Wild, which, believe it or not, my first playthrough of Breath of the Wild was on the Wii U version. I think I spent almost 100 hours with it, and the frame rate was not as bad as people were making it out to be. I don't know, maybe I just got lucky, I doubt it, but it was more than fine. And again, it just shows that the most impressive games aren't always the most powerful ones, they are the most creative ones. The fact that there is a game with a map way bigger than Skyrim, and it's beautiful and mysterious and interesting, and it'll give you like 100+ hours of game time on this thing that people were making fun of for years, is honestly impressive. This was also the generation it last felt like Nintendo introduced a new world and set of characters to stand alongside Link, Mario, and Samus, and that's Splatoon. Nintendo for many years always had a genre missing: shooters, and they answered it in a very Nintendo way, with paintballs. I only played Splatoon 1, but I really liked it a lot, and from what I hear, Splatoon 2 and 3 are only better. I know people wish Nintendo made more new IP, but I feel like they only do that when they need a new genre underneath their belt. You got a strategy game, Pikmin; a platformer, Mario; action adventure, Zelda; shooter, Splatoon; fighting game, Smash. Oh yeah, Smash. After suffering through Brawl for so many years on Wii, Super Smash Bros. Wii U felt like a breath of fresh air for an already legendary series. I feel like most people forget how needed this game was. Most people competitively at the time were straight up lugging around GameCubes to play Melee or a modded Brawl with Project M, but Smash Wii U was finally the new norm. The sense of weight was better, there was no more tripping, the roster was the series' biggest and best at the time. This is really close to still being my most played Smash game, only topped out by a phenomenal game that definitely built off of this Smash. The Wii U was arguably Nintendo's best era of first-party support since the GameCube. The Wii had Mario Galaxy, Skyward Sword, Mario Kart Wii, not counting any cross-platform games like Twilight Princess or the first two Pikmin games. The Wii first-party lineup has some gems, but not as many as the Wii U. And then there was the thing I loved most about the Wii U, which was the absolutely unbelievably gargantuan virtual console. Arguably the greatest virtual console in gaming history. So you had right off the bat NES, Super Nintendo, N64, Game Boy Advance, Nintendo DS. Yo, just the idea of Game Boy Advance and DS games on my TV or gamepad is just so awesome. There were also TurboGrafx 16 games, which I know it was a big deal for some people. Personally for me, not really. But then if you went into Wii mode with your Wii U, which basically just turns your system into a Wii until you click the button back to Wii U mode, you can go to the Wii eShop and get into weirder stuff like Commodore 64, Master System, Neo Geo, Sega Genesis, and arcade games. There were just so many possibilities with this thing. To be honest, at the time, if you were a new Nintendo fan, I can't think of a better system than the Wii U to have played. It feels like any first-party Nintendo series, you could basically start at the beginning with the Wii U. Oh, you want to play through all the Zelda games? Well, you can basically do that. You want to play through every Metroid game? You can basically do that. You want to play every Mario game? You can basically do that. There might be a few weird exceptions like Game Boy Color games, but for the most part, you can start back on the NES, then work your way up to the Super Nintendo and N64. Then if you were lucky, some GameCube games got ported, so things like the first two Metroid Prime games you could play on your Wii U, and then of course you could obviously play Wii games. And then two of their most beloved games, which you couldn't play on the Wii U, Twilight Princess and Wind Waker, boom, they just got their best versions. Wind Waker, the Triforce quest was fixed, the sailing's faster. Twilight Princess, you can actually play with buttons like you should be able to play a freaking video game. You don't have to go buy that kind of rare GameCube version anymore to play with buttons. There was also this fucking thing, which was Miiverse. It was like this Facebook for Miis, which was supposed to be this great way to talk to your friends about games and discover new games, maybe get advice if you were stuck in a game, but usually it was a host to just weird shit like this. The Wii U was also just this low-key king of couch co-op in this era where online multiplayer is just dominating everything. It still is. The Wii U was just the best way to invite some friends over, play Mario Kart, play some Pikmin, Super Mario 3D World. It was just so awesome. Also low-key a great feature. I used to live with my dad at the time when I first had my Wii U, and he would always watch football on Sundays, which would mean that I'm kind of shit out of luck for playing on the TV because I didn't have one in my bedroom. But with this cheap little thing, I could play Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, any game I wanted in the comfort of my bed. It was super cool. Plug in headphones. It just blew my mind at the time. And obviously when you look at the gamepad, this cheap, laughable thing, it is very much the prototype for this Switch. But you know what? The Wii U sank so the Switch could fly. And that and many other reasons is why I will always love the Wii U. And I'll never play this thing again because... As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your ears and eyes. If you loved it or liked it at all, please check out my other videos. Like, subscribe, share with a friend, comment. Thank you very much. It means everything to me.